It's 6 p.m. on a Friday evening here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us first begin with the headlines. South Korea is in the midpoint of the 5-day Chuseok holiday weekend, but roads are expected to be congested again, with early birds driving back home from family gatherings. North Korea's foreign minister justifies the regime's nuclear program as a necessary protection against the U.S., the world's largest nuclear state, adding that Pyongyang is ready to launch counterattacks against Washington. With Typhoon Malakas expected to indirectly affect the country, the South Korean government holds an emergency meeting to discuss protection measures against severe weather conditions such as heavy downpours in the southern regions. Millions of Koreans are back on the roads on their way back home after visiting their families in their hometowns. Let's go to our Kwon So-ah at the Seoul tollgate for the latest traffic updates. So-ah, what's it like out there right now?
Well, Daniel, if you take a look here behind me, it doesn't seem that congested here at this whole toll gate. But don't be fooled, because cars have been piling up since this morning around 9 a.m. and especially on the northbound lanes, such as on the number 1 Gyeongbu Expressway, which is the expressway you see behind me and one of the most used expressways in the country. Now, around 2 hours ago, the congestion was said to have been at the peak, and for some time, it's going to be bumper to bumper in some areas, but speed has been picking up a little bit in the last hour. Now, traffic authorities say things will most likely totally ease up past midnight, probably around 2 or 3 a.m. Now, this as around 480,000 vehicles are expected to return to the country's capital today, the third day of the Chuseok holiday. Now, if we take a look at the latest estimated travel time to Seoul, beginning down south from Busan and Gwangju, you'll need around 5 hours. From Daejeon and Gangneung, roughly 3.5 hours. Now, meanwhile, for those heading out of Seoul, it's not much different from a regular weekend.
Also, traditionally on Chuseok, people are on the four wheels driving, but also some took to the air, I understand. What about other means of travel?
Well, Daniel, what's noticeable is that a lot of people have been traveling abroad this time around, and that is because the Chuseok holiday is 6 days long this time. Now, Incheon International Airport is estimating that around 1 million people will be using airplanes throughout this span, which would be an around 20% increase from last year. Now, around 3.6 million are estimated to have taken or will be using railroads, with majority using KTX bullet trains. Now, meanwhile, for those who arrive in Seoul late tonight, it's good to know that subways and buses in the city run longer than usual, most of them until 2 a.m. Saturday. Now, that's all I have for now, but I'll be bringing you more updates of the traffic conditions past 10. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, thank you for those updates, and thank you for being out there for us, So-ah. Now, turning to North Korea, unfazed by continued warnings from the rest of the world, it responds with threats of more military provocation. The communist state is ready to launch another counterattack against what it calls hostile forces. Connie Kim shares with us the regime's top diplomats' latest comments.
New threats from a senior North Korean official have led to speculation about the type of military provocations a reclusive regime could be planning. Appearing at the Non-Aligned Movement Summit in Venezuela on Thursday, North Korea's Foreign Minister Lee Yong-ho said Pyongyang is ready to launch, quote, counterattacks if the United States keeps provoking the regime.
Since we are facing the world's largest nuclear state, only nuclear weapons will protect us. Our arsenal is a countermeasure against threats and sanctions from hostile forces, including the United States.
These comments are seen as a protest against the U.S. B-1 bombers that flew over South Korea this week and show force against Pyongyang's most powerful nuclear blast to date. The general speculation among North Korea watchers is that the North could launch surface-to-air missiles to show Washington it's capable of shooting down the U.S. bombers should they fly over North Korean airspace, or launch a long-range ballistic missile to show how close it is to being able to strike the U.S. mainland. And then there is the biggest concern, the possibility of another nuclear test by a regime that refuses to curb its atomic ambitions.
The assessment by South Korean and U.S. intelligence in regards to another nuclear test by North Korea is that Pyongyang is always ready for an additional test in the Punggye area.
The North Korean foreign minister is due in New York next week for a speech at the UN General Assembly, so his comments in Venezuela are not expected to be his last in that regard. At the same venue, the foreign ministers of South Korea and Japan will discuss ways to step up the pressure on Pyongyang. There is also a chance the two sides could exchange ideas on a previously abandoned proposal to expand military intelligence sharing to better deal with North Korean threats. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
North Korea, hit hard by devastating floods, has reached out to NGOs in the United States for help, but the regime is being heavily criticized as it made the overtures just days before conducting its latest nuclear test. Lee Min-young has more on the bipolar activities from North Korea.
Flooding in North Korea from Typhoon Malik earlier this month has revealed the hypocrisy of a regime obsessed with nuclear weapons while asking for help from the international community. Pyongyang has called the floods the worst disaster since the regime's founding, with hundreds killed or missing and nearly 70,000 people left homeless. Now the Washington Post has revealed an email from the North's mission in New York to several NGOs, asking for flood relief aid. The Post said Thursday that in fact the email was sent just 5 days before the North conducted its fifth and most powerful nuclear test. The hypocrisy of spending millions of dollars on nuclear weapons while begging for aid was not lost on the international press, including the Washington Post and the New York Times. This as the UN Security Council prepares to impose another set of sanctions on Pyongyang for violating previous Security Council resolutions. Lee Min-young, Arirang News.
Every year, Air Force squadrons from 6 countries converge for a large-scale aerial combat drills known as Exercise Red Flag. Our Kim Hyun-bin shows us how Korean fighter pilots and their teams are preparing for the exercise that requires extreme skill and coordination.
The EC horizon comes into view on the monitor. South Korean fighter jet pilots are using this 3D simulator to prepare for a multinational Air Force drill, dubbed Red Flag, scheduled for later this month. 6 nations, including the U.S., the Netherlands, and South Korea, are scheduled to take part in this year's drill. The South Korean Air Force has been making the utmost preparations and are now putting on the finishing touches. The simulator is very compact and makes even the smallest movements difficult. But fighter pilots have to stay in this cramped cockpit for over 10 hours at a time. The South Korean pilots will have to fly over 8,000 kilometers non-stop to reach Alaska, so this kind of training is unavoidable.
To take part in Red Flag, we'll have to fly over 10 hours and refuel in mid-air, so intense concentration is needed.
Even maintenance personnel are subject to hardcore training. They need to inspect every last part of the jets and prepare for emergencies. From the engines to emergency supplies, all personnel are trained to have everything ready to go within an hour.
The exercise is held overseas, so we need to be well prepared. Red Flag is a key exercise, so we'll do our best to have everything under control.
South Korea's F-15K and C-130 transport planes will depart for Alaska on the 28th of September. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
A U.S. consumer safety agency announced a recall of all Galaxy Note 7 sold in the country in response to reports of exploding batteries and the danger that it poses to airlines and consumers. Park Jong-hong has the details.
Around 1 million Galaxy Note 7 smartphones sold in the U.S. are to be recalled due to the risk that its batteries may explode and catch fire. In its announcement, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission said consumers should immediately stop using the devices and turn them off. It said consumers can receive a new Note 7 with a different battery free of charge, a refund, or a new replacement device.
The public heard our message last week to power down these phones if you have one. Today's message is to take that phone into your carrier or directly to Samsung, if that's where you purchased it, and take advantage of this recall.
The agency said Samsung has received 92 reports of the batteries overheating in the U.S., including 26 reports of burns and 55 reports of property damage, including fires in cars and a garage. In a related development, the Department of Transportation is ordering airline passengers not to bring their Note 7s on planes unless they keep them turned off during the flight. This stronger measure comes a week after the Federal Aviation Administration issued a warning to passengers. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
Typhoon Malakas is heading north from the Philippines and could affect the coastal areas of South Korea. The nation's safety ministry is urging area residents to take precautionary measures. Yoon Shin tells us more.
Sweeping through the northern parts of the Philippines on Friday, Typhoon Malakas, whose name means strong, is headed northwest, carrying heavy gusts over 140 kilometers per hour. South Korea's Public Safety and Security Ministry held an emergency meeting on Friday, along with officials from 9 other related ministries, to discuss protection measures, as the typhoon is expected to have an impact on the nation. Starting Friday, the southern parts of the country, including Jeju Island and the Chungcheongdo provinces, are expecting at least 80 to 200 millimeters of heavy rain throughout the weekend.
The typhoon's winds are expected to peak during the weekend, and strong storms are expected around the coastal region of South Korea.
The typhoon is not expected to reach as far north as the nation's inland regions, but it'll bring heavy gusts and downpours to South Korea as well as northeastern Japan. The nation's safety ministry is urging area residents, especially those living in the region most directly affected by back-to-back earthquakes earlier this week, to follow safety measures carefully. Also, with the nation in the midst of its traditional holiday season and heavy traffic expected to continue over the weekend, drivers are expected to take extra precautions in stormy weather. Yoon Shin, Arirang News.
For Chuseok, the traffic increase in Korea is not only on land but up in the sky as well. Around 1 million expected to use Incheon International Airport during that span of time. So what do these tourists coming in and out of the country mostly spend their money on? Lee Ji-won takes a closer look.
For many Koreans, this year's Chuseok holiday means a 5-day weekend. Between the 13th and the 18th of this month, nearly 1 million people are expected to use Korea's main gateway, Incheon International Airport. With more Koreans using the opportunity to travel, how do they spend their money when they're abroad?
We're going to Osaka, and our trip is mainly based around eating.
This trip is for my daughter-in-law to get some quality rest. So we'll head to the hot springs and other places that my daughter arranged for us.
Korean tourists used to take mainly package tours built around shopping and tourist attractions. But now, with access to more information online and with more experience traveling, people's spending patterns abroad have changed.
These days, people choose to spend their trips enjoying their hobbies or simply relaxing. Things like scuba diving, hitting the spa, or trying new foods.
What about foreign tourists visiting Korea? How do they like to spend their money?
We like Korean food, so we are here mostly for Korean food. We are looking forward to see it.
We came to buy Korean cosmetics, clothes, and we also want to have Korean food.
Last year, nearly 70% of foreign tourists had come to Korea for the shopping. And the steady stream of visitors continue through Chuseok, with cosmetics at the top of their list.
Shopping, especially for cosmetics and perfume, is still Korea's biggest draw for tourists in terms of spending. And this is mainly due to high demand and interest among Chinese tourists, who account for more than 50% of visitors to Korea.
Experts say that with tourists moving from package tours to custom-made itineraries both here and abroad, the industry needs to work on providing a wide range of choices for them at reasonable prices. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
It's tradition that Koreans make wishes upon the Chuseok moon. While the weather could affect how round and luminous it could be, there's a special moon that retains its amazing form and glow. Woo Chang-hee introduces us to the Supermoon that landed in Seoul.
This year's Chuseok holiday is brighter than ever, not to mention cuter. This adorable character called Supermoon has come down to earth and is floating on Seokchon Lake in eastern Seoul. 20 meters tall and 18 meters wide, its adorable shy smile welcomes visitors of all ages to the lake, from little babies to elderly couples. As the sun goes down, Supermoon adds a special glow to the landscape. Shining in 7 bright colors, yellow, green, blue, pink, and more, it stands out against the dark night sky. The lake becomes a small vision of the cosmos, dotted with the stars and planets in various shapes and colors.
Families, friends, and couples have come to the lake to enjoy the early autumn breeze and the beautiful night scenery, as well as to make their Chuseok wishes on the giant moon. I spoke to a few of them and asked what they wished for.
I hope my dad can earn lots of money.
I hope my parents never get old.
My grandma has been sick, so I wished for her health to get better.
The Supermoon was set up by Songpa-gu District Office and Lotte Group to spread the moon's positive energy to those who choose to spend some quality time at the lake for Chuseok.
We made special plans to have the supermoon on this lake throughout the month of September because of the Chuseok holidays. We hope lots of people can find some rejuvenation and have a great time in this beautiful place with its picturesque water and giant moon.
The supermoon will shine down on Seokchon Lake every night from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. until October 3rd. 오정희, Arirang News.
That's all from us at this hour. More updates coming your way at 10 p.m. Korea time. For now, thank you for watching.